What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Had a 10-game slate. It's now 11 because of the travel conditions in Buffalo, I believe. So we're starting a little early because my 9-year-old son needs to be picked up at 3:10 or he throws a tantrum. So here we are. He doesn't really throw a tantrum, but, he does talk some sauce. And we don't really need him standing out in the cold. It is cold here. We are early. We are starting most Tuesday and Thursday slates going forward will probably be at 1:45 Eastern. So just be aware. But joining me, as always, Slim Cliffy. Got your ears lowered, it looks like. How's your day going?
Going good. Always a good day, the day after the Habs win. Nice win last night against New Jersey. Well, but it only ended up being a 2-game slate because that Buffalo game was canceled, got pushed to today. Makes this slate fairly spicy because obviously it's a lopsided matchup for Buffalo. There are a few lopsided matchups, or at least high event matchups that we're expecting that are driving a lot of ownership, Buffalo being amongst them. So makes for an interesting slate in like where to go, where not to, because there are a lot of high price lines that aren't getting any ownership. Some mid-price lines are, some aren't. I think there are good matchups for some of those mid-price lines as well. So kind of a fun slate here. Wish it was a little bit smaller, but I mean, 11's better than 14 or 15 as we've been getting at times this season. So I'll take it.
Yeah. The scheduling is a bit wonky. Actually, next week, it's all between like 6 and 9 games almost every day next week. So you'll be seeing a bunch of us next week. But last night, the person who you needed on the optimal lineup to win, Josh Waugh. Is it Waugh or Roy? It's Waugh, right?
I think it's Waugh. Yeah, he's from Quebec.
Min price at 1% on a 2-game slate. Goal, shot bonus, couple blocks. Needed him to ship the GPPs. Good call from Clayton. He was in our Discord last night. He said it's Monahan Waugh night. Sometimes I almost listen to him. I put in Monahan with Slavkovsky for a power play stack. If I put in Waugh, I would have won so many tickets. There he is. There's Clayton. There's our moderator. We'll call him the moderator. He's our moderator, essentially. Yeah. But yeah, I see people starting to file in and realizing that we're actually on the air a little bit early. So let's get into this slate. But before we do, just want to say thank you guys so much for all the support over the past month or so. It's been incredible. I shared the link in the chat if you are looking to go premium. It doesn't even have to be for NHL. It can be for NBA. It could be for PGA. We have MMA coming up this weekend. I will be dropping a quick picks video on my Twitter tonight. Just be on the lookout for that. We will have a promo code for a sale for the MMA product dropping tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Going to be a pretty good card. It's a pay-per-view. So if you are interested in playing MMA, check out my Twitter, JRH002DFS. For a quick picks video, Greg Ehrenberg also has some stuff on the YouTube channel. My stuff will be going up on the YouTube channel next week. We just kind of settled on doing this a bit late in the week, so it'll be up on the YouTube starting next week. But again, NHL, any I almost said prescription. Got to ask my doctor if Perbix is right for me, but any membership through the link helps us out directly, helps us bring you all these shows that we are trying to be here as much as possible. So thank you guys so much. Now that I stumbled through that, let's get into the slate here. We're going to start it off with a pretty important game, it feels like. The Colorado Avalanche with a 3 total. Heading into Boston, the Bruins have a 3.5 total. A couple of the higher price lines in this game. You have Colorado 1 at 22,900 with McKinnon, Rantanen, and Johnny Drouin. Boston 1, 21-4 with Pastrnak, Marchand, Charlie Coyle. They're going with Zacha, Van Riemsdyk, DeBrusk on the second line. Looks like old Colorado 2's back. Colton, O'Connor, Wood at 9,800. That could be an interesting filler if you're trying to do some expensive power play stuff. So, I don't mind that line. Colton still power play 1 there. O'Connor and Wood have been pretty good offensively, and now that their depth on Colorado is pretty weak. They play some pretty heavy minutes for their price. This game's more about the top lines here, though, and this game's interesting because Colorado doesn't have the best depth right now, so them defensively isn't great. They take a bunch of penalties. That's why you're seeing a fair bit of ownership here on Boston 12% projected ownership on an 11-game slate. Seems a little bit high, but, it's a good power play matchup. I mean, the Avs penalty kill is okay, but, they just take a ton of penalties. And then on the flip side, it's kind of the same deal. Boston has a good penalty kill. They've had good goaltending, but they take a bunch of penalties. And if you give the Colorado power play, whether Nishushkin's in, Lekkonen's in or out, or it's Colton on power play 1, they do tremendous amount of damage. And they're coming in at 6.7% projected ownership. They have a higher top 2 stack percentage than Boston 1. There's other really expensive lines on the slate, like Edmonton 1, Vancouver 1, the Torontos that we'll get to. But, Cliff, you mentioned it on the last show, he doesn't really like playing Colorado 1 for the 5-on-5. They haven't been great, and I agree. But it's just if Boston's going to give them 4 or 5 power plays tonight, they can easily get there at that percentage. So I do like both top lines here tonight.
Yeah. You mentioned all the power plays and penalties and all that, and this is something that certainly favors Colorado. Boston, since American Thanksgiving, which it's been 8 weeks now, that 8-week stretch, Boston is over 4 minor penalties taken per game. Colorado is also drawing over 4 minor penalties per game. So Colorado stands a decent chance of getting a lot of special team time here today. And Boston's penalty kill has generally been good. It was great for years, obviously, with Bergeron around. Was good earlier this season. It has started to slide a bit. I was looking basically since early December, 21st by shots against per minute on the PK, 17th by goals against per minute. Not a terrible penalty kill, obviously, but not elite. And if you're not elite against Colorado and you're going to take a bunch of penalties, it could lead to some problems. So I kind of agree with you that I do think Colorado 1 is certainly in a good spot here today. The one thing that worries me is that there are a lot of the shot and expected goals and goals metrics and all that with Ross Colton on the top power play unit, because he's spent some time there, because he was there earlier this season when Nichushkin was out of the lineup for a few games. Obviously, he's there now with Nichushkin in the player assistance program. Power play has generally been worse with him there. So I don't mind playing Colorado 1. I think, they're super talented. They play a ton of minutes. So obviously they're in play basically every single slate. I think even with the ownership, it is the Boston side I kind of like here. You and I were talking before the show. Boston is one of the few, I think it's the only team, I'm sure there might be some bettors watching this that could tell me otherwise. I think Boston is the only team whose team total has risen since last night. Generally, most of the teams that have seen their team total change across the slate today have seen them go down. Boston's has gone up. That's kind of interesting to me for 2 reasons. One, I wonder if that doesn't mean higher ownership for Boston. And 2, maybe there's going to be more goals than we're expecting. Marchand and Pasternak together on the top line. Obviously, it's a perfectly correlated top line. 250 minutes together this year at 5-on-5. They're creating 3.2 expected goals per 60 minutes. That's very, very good. Heavy ice time as well. Charlie Coyle, he's kind of just a guy. At this point, I don't think it matters which center they have. You know what I mean? So you definitely want to include him because it's perfect correlation. The ownership is, like I said, is kind of high. 12% ownership, 19.4% top 2 stack. But I do think I like the Boston side more than Colorado here. But yeah, you're right. Certainly they're both in play.
Yeah. It's an important game to kick off the slate too. There's a lot of low road totals here tonight. There's only 3 above 3. Colorado's 1, Dallas is another, and then Toronto. Everyone else on the road under 3. But yeah, Boston is one of the higher totals on the slate as it is. Let's get to another home team with a large total. Montreal Canadiens with a 2.9 total heading into Ottawa. The Sens have a 3.7. Sens. We missed the boat on Sens 1. We were both on Sens 2 the other night. Ridley Greig, Brady Tkachuk, and Claude Giroux made some noise. And I hate that we missed the low-owned Ottawa 1 because I kind of wanted to go back tonight, and I was hoping the secret wasn't out. It's out. They're 16,800. They have a 9% top 2 stack percentage. Their ownership projection is coming in projected at 14.5%. Now, you can say, you know what, that's a little high. They're 16,800. It's a great spot. And I tend to agree with you there. It's just that, like, you can't fit them with any of the other expensive lines. There aren't many other mid-range lines that you really want to play tonight. Like, if there is one that you can play them, but like, just know that, like, if you like it, it's not that sneaky. Like, there's lines that I like. I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be sneaky, and then I realize I'm not as smart as I think I am. You know what I mean? So like, if you are going to use Ottawa 1 tonight, and I think it's fine, they have a 3.7 total. Just be aware of, you know, if you're making a cookie cutter 4-3-1 in a 150-man field, like, it could be duped. Single entry, there's so many ways to get different. It's not a big deal. Ottawa 2, I think, is fine. I don't love Matty Joseph there. They are 16,600. You can go Stützle Batherson for some power play. Because Montembeault went last night, it's either going to be Caden Primo or Jake Allen tonight. They are both a step down from Montembeault, in my opinion. Not that my opinion on goalies really carries any water, but I don't mind going back to Ottawa 2. It's just like they're negatively leveraged too, and you might as well just spend the extra $200 to go to that top line. Another mid-range line that you could like here is Montreal 1, because Ottawa is a mess defensively, but they're coming in with even higher projected ownership than Ottawa 1 at 14.8%. They're 15K to full stack. They're fully correlated. So again, I don't mind it, but back-to-back on the road, I really don't want to hinge my night on a 15% projected Montreal line. You know what I mean? I'd much rather go elsewhere. So again, like, I like this game. It's just, do I really want to eat the ownership?
Yeah, I will say I don't think I would eat the ownership on Montreal. Like, I understand why they're getting the ownership they are. Ottawa is a mess defensively. We went over that on Tuesday. The numbers have been really bad since Jacques Martin took over as coach. I mean, they've been bad pretty much all season. Montreal's really not drawing a lot of power plays. That's one thing that kind of bothers me. They're down near 3 power plays over the last couple months per game. So that's one thing that's kind of working against. The other is just the ownership. Like you talked about, when you're talking about like 15% Montreal on the road, on a road in a back-to-back, mind you, like, I don't really care about their price at that point. It's just, I think the ownership is just far too high. Like, Montreal's top line is also, like, they're starting to show a few cracks. Now, they were on a long road trip. I think it was like 7 or 8 games. They didn't do so well on that road trip. I was just looking at their last 10 games overall. I think it's going back to Christmas. 2 expected goals for, 2.8 expected goals against per 60 minutes. Like, generally speaking, before that stretch, those numbers were reversed. Only 1.9 goals for, 2.7 against. Like, this is a line that hasn't necessarily been playing extremely well. Like a line that's not really playing that well back-to-back on the road, and it's going to be, and has the most negative leverage on the slate per the top stacks tool. Like, I feel like that's an easy fade. And Montreal burns me. They burn me. Like, I'd way rather play an over-owned Ottawa in this situation. You talk about that ownership, 14.5% on the top line, 9.4% on the second line, both higher than the top 2 stack probability. I wrote up Claude Giroux in the picks article, which is free to read Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday over at Stokastic.com. Just head on over to the NHL section. What I highlighted in that picks article is now we're up to 60 minutes with Ridley Greig and Brady Tkachuk together. And there's also, the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season when Tim Stützle was on the top line. When that top line has any center but Josh Norris, like either Greig or Stützle, the average of the two of them, 40% more expected goals, 55% more actual goals. Like, it is literally night and day. Now, in the 60 minutes that Grigg and Tkachuk have played together, 91 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Now, that's obviously going to come down, but it should probably highlight just how much Josh Norris was dragging this team down, specifically that line. I would say the entire team. I think it's a great power play spot for Ottawa. And if you're worried about ownership, like I like the Ottawa top line a lot tonight. Like I'm not worried about the Montreal matchup, back to back on the road. You talked about the goaltending. We talked about the penalties that they take. On Tuesday, I talked about how much I really do like Ridley Greig. Like I think he's gonna surprise a lot of people in the second half. I think. If there's concerns about ownership, just turn it into a power play stack of some sort. Add Drake Batherson to it. I think Drake Batherson would be the guy to add. Like Drake Batherson has 16 goals and 31 points in his last 32 games. Like he got off to a bad start. I think he had 1 point through the first like six games he played this season. Since then, he's been almost a point per game and on a 40 goal pace. Like I think adding him to an Ottawa one stack, going triple winger on DraftKings or something like that, there are a lot of ways to get different. So I really do like Ottawa one. I will say I just generally like all their power play guys, Claude Giroux and Thomas Chabot included.
Yeah. No argument for me there. Like, I don't mind playing chalky lines if you know you can get different, and you can on this slate. Like, if Ottawa one is your favorite, I always say play your guys. Don't fade someone because of ownership. You can get different. On D, you can get different. In goal, you can get different with your secondary stack. So you love Ottawa one, you play them. Easy as that. Dallas Stars with a 3.1 total heading into Philadelphia. The Flyers have a 2.8 total. Looks like Dallas is going back to the lines that they went to last game, which was Robertson, Hintz, and Wyatt Johnston. Our boys, Duchesne, Sagan, and Marchment, and then Pavelski, Ben, and Sam Steele. There was a placeholder for Nick Delorier was skating on this, as a top line pre-games or in morning skate this morning. That is a placeholder, hopefully, for Sean Couturier. I'm going to assume Couturier is in tonight on the top line in between Konechny and Tippett. I kind of like Philly one here if Couturier plays one. Maybe their ownership doesn't come in as high because Couturier still has the day-to-day tag, and there is no definitive news. If we get definitive news from Torts at like 5 p.m., maybe the ownership comes up a little bit, but maybe people shy away from crunching them in or whatever optimizer you use because there is a question mark around him. Ottinger is in net. Heiskanen's still out though, which is important. Like their defensive numbers have really slid without Miro Heiskanen. I think Philly one is in play here. I think, I don't love Frost, Atkinson, Farabee. I think you can one-off Farabee. He is on the power play. Not that you stack the Flyers for the power play. Frost is 2,500, so if you want a cheap filler, you can go like Frost, Farabee, two-man. Dallas side is a bit interesting, and you have to consider them. They're one of 3 road teams with a 3 or higher total. I just don't love the matchup here. Like, especially if Couturier is in, I'm probably out on the Hintz, Robertson, Johnston line. It would be going back to our boys, Duchesne, Sagan, and Marchment. That line has been good all season. They're 14-2. It's a little bit more expensive than fillery stuff, but like, again, Sagan's having a renaissance season. Duchesne has been a big addition there. Marchment has been good. So Philly one for me, Dallas 2. Dallas 2 is more MME-ish.
Yeah, I'm going to say, like, I really just don't have a ton of interest in either side here. Like, over the last 2 months, Dallas is drawing the fewest power plays per game of any team in the league. Like, less than San Jose and less than Chicago and less than all those teams. 2.6 power plays per game. Like, there are teams that are, like, 4.1, 4.2. And they're drawing 2.6 per game. Now, they're still very efficient with their power play, which is why they're kind of getting away with it. But the Flyers penalty kill remains one of the best in the league. So you have a road team that's not drawing a lot of power plays, which, mind you, doesn't have Miro Heiskanen. Like, we still don't know if Thomas, like I've talked about Thomas Harley. I think he's a really good offensive defenseman. There's also a difference between being a good offensive defenseman and being able to run a power play against an elite penalty kill. I just think that there are reasons not to play Dallas tonight, just because they don't draw power plays, just because it's an awful PK spot, because they don't have Heiskanen. I think I agree with you. Like, if anything, I would go back to that Dallas too, to Duchesne, Seguin, and Marchment. They're obviously not that reliant on the power play for their fantasy value. They're not coming in with much ownership, 0.9%, low top 2 stack probability, but you'd expect that. But I really don't have a lot of interest in them. On the Philly side, the thing with moving Joe Pavelski down and Wyatt Johnston up is, I think there's a pretty good argument that it makes the line better defensively. Joe Pavelski, like, if you look over the last couple of years, like, Hintz and Robertson's numbers away from Joe Pavelski are all better, offensively, defensively, everything. Wyatt Johnston's expected goals metrics, very good defensively, not very good, but good defensively so far this season. Pavelski's are bad. So you have them going into that Dallas 1 matchup, which is really bad. The Flyers' power play is terrible. So, that doesn't even matter for them. So now you're in a bad 5-on-5 matchup with Jake Ottinger healthy and a power play that can't score. Like, I don't really have interest in Flyers 1 either. Like, I think if anything from this game, it would be taking one-offs for me. I think, like, one-off Travis Konechny is always in play. One-off Owen Tippett especially is always in play. Owen Tippett has 100 shots in his last 25 games. 4 shots per game over his last 25 games. He's done that averaging like 16 minutes a game. It's crazy. So, like, one off the wingers, like you said, Farabee. I think Cam Atkinson at 4,300 makes a lot of sense. He has good scoring chance creation metrics numbers so far this year. So I think one-offing him is fine, but I don't really have interest in stacking either side.
Fair enough. I'm a little bit higher on Philly 1. Like, I thought when you started talking about Pavelski that you're saying that the third line got better defensively, and my brain was just like, wah. But yeah, no, it makes sense with Wyatt Johnston up there that they're going to be a bit better defensively. But again, like, with Heiskanen out, they keep Harley away from top comp. I just, I don't have much faith in that top pair. It's kind of more of an MME thing. If I'm making a mid-range build, I would maybe consider them 1 to 3, but yeah, MME definitely makes a little bit more sense here. Let's get to a sneaky little game here. Minnesota Wild with a 2.8 total heading into Tampa Bay. The Lightning have a 3.2. Not much ownership in this game, and that worries me because, one, the Minnesota penalty kill is atrocious. I was asking you this morning, I said, hey, has it gotten any better with Brodin there? Not really. I mean, a little bit, marginally, but like marginally better from an awful power play or penalty kill is still a bad penalty kill. So then you have fully correlated Kucherov point Stamkos, 23,700 coming in projected under 6%. And that line is all gas, no brakes. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, Tampa Bay 1 is one of my favorite spots of the night here. Not really a shocker. Like, I'm not really going out on a limb there. I really, really do like Tampa 1. You want to play Tampa 2 as a filler? I think it's fine. Like, the name, like, for name value, it's all right. Like, I think you're a bigger Hagel guy than I am, but like, he's like a diet Carter Verhaeghe. So, like, I don't mind Cirelli, Hagel, 2-man, something like that for filler. Interesting side here is Minnesota. Both their top 2 lines are coming in at 1.1% projected. Vegas has been, I don't know, man, like, maybe I'm just an idiot, but like, Vegas seems to be like propping this Tampa team up like they're very good defensively, and the teams coming into Tampa have depressed totals. Like, you're going to give me a Rossi, Zuccarello, Kaprizov line at 1.1%. Going, like, okay, even if they get the Kucherov point Stamkos matchup, that line defensively, at best, trades chances. Tampa Bay's penalty kill, not great. I don't know, man. Like, I like Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi here. I'm not running out to play them in, 1 to 3 because for 2.8 road total at 17,800, it's a little bit pricey, but like, I'm just tired of Vegas thinking that they're an elite defensive team. They just aren't. Like they're at best middle of the pack, and that's fine. But like they're not like the Stanley Cup champion defensive teams that they were when they were, in the Cup finals like 5 straight years, whatever it was. So I think Minnesota 1's fine. You want to play Minnesota 2, I think that's fine. Like again, it's Marcus Johansson. You can leave him off, but like Joe Arsenac, Boldy on the power play as well. So I like both. I like both top sixes here.
Yeah, I'll start on the Tampa side. I wrote up Tampa in the picks article today for 2 reasons. One, I think the Tampa top line is getting unlucky. What I highlighted in the article, over the previous 2 seasons, 4.6 goals per 60 minutes off 35.3 shots. This season, they're at 1.6 goals per 60 minutes on 36.1 shots. This is an elite offensive line that is just getting, their actual production crushed by shooting percentages. And whenever I see a line that is creating as much as they are, that just not scoring by shooting percentages, it really perks up my ears because it usually keeps ownership away from them. As you said, they're only about 6% owned here tonight. It's also a good power play spot. You mentioned the Minnesota penalty kill. It's still not good. And they're taking, I'm sorry, and they're taking a lot of penalties. There are only 4 teams in the league giving up over 4 power plays per game to the opponent over the last 2 months. And one of them is Minnesota. And we know how good Tampa Bay's power play is. And Tampa Bay is drawing power plays at an above average rate. Like we talked about how good of a power play spot it was for Colorado at the top of the show. It's a really good power play spot for Tampa Bay here as well. So you get a perfectly correlated top line that is set to regress positively and perhaps by a lot and is in a very good power play spot. Like I really do like Tampa 1 here. Like I would be playing, I don't have a problem like with a 2-man from Tampa 2 or anything like that, but I really want to get the Tampa Bay power play guys in my lineup if I'm playing Lightning here tonight. The Minnesota side is where it gets interesting. I wrote up Marco Rossi in the picks article. You and I, big Rossi slappies. There's no ownership coming in on them, like none. 1.1% top line, 1.1% second line. You brought up how they do have a low road total. Tampa Bay's defense does not worry me in the slightest. Like I wrote that I wrote about that in the section on Rossi in the picks article. Like at best, you could say Tampa is an average defensive team. And average defensive teams with Kirill Kaprizov on the other side don't make me very nervous. So I do like Minnesota 1 here tonight. It sucks that Rossi's not on the power play. I don't think it's like a tremendous power play spot for them, but it's not a bad one, certainly. I just think considering how low Minnesota's ownership is, it's like how often are you going to get Kirill Kaprizov's line at 1% against an average defensive team? Like that's kind of the way that I look at it. I think, Jonas Brodin being in the lineup helps them a lot because it keeps them out of the defensive end and keeps the puck going back the other way, which is, that's always valuable. So I really do like Minnesota 1. I think Minnesota 2 certainly in play as well. Joel Eriksson and Matthew Boldy typically have played well together. 3.1 goals per 60 minutes for that line under their new coach. But I think it's both top lines I like here. I really do like the Tampa Bay top line. I think I'm kind of, getting ready for them to hurt me. But Minnesota's low ownership is really appealing here tonight. And it's kind of giving me a little bit of pause before just slamming in my Tampa guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, but like when Alex Tuck and Tage Thompson came back and Buffalo 1 was like 18-1. And they're coming in low owned. It just kind of felt like, I don't know. Like maybe I'm just crazy. It just feels like Vegas is disrespecting teams going into Tampa. But I could just be crazy. Once again, thank you guys so much for the support over the past month since we switched to the affiliate stuff through RevShare. We really, really appreciate it. If you are interested in the NHL package, you can click that link in the chat. It'll take you right to the subscription page for NHL or any other sport, really. But for NHL, you get player and ownership projections, the top stacks tools, line combinations, and the premium Discord. If you are, if for some reason we don't get to your question in the YouTube chat, pop in the Discord. Cliffy and I are always in there. Jake, if you're looking for Jake, he's always in there. We have a bunch of sharp players, lots of sharks, not the San Jose kind, the actual good sharks, and they will help you if you have strategy questions. So hop on in there, and thank you guys so much for the support. Let's get to a game. I think this is the next two games are the two games I wish that weren't on the slate, which is low for me. That's 2 out of 12 or 2 out of 11. That's low for me. Usually it's like 9 of 14. St. Louis Blues with a 2.9 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 3 total. Alex Ovechkin, game time decision again. Someone came out of their non-contact sweater. No, Sonny Milano is still non-contact. Rasmus Sandin was in a regular sweater today. I don't know if he's in or not. I didn't see the announcement there. If you are interested in playing Washington, I'm not. I never am. I never will be. But if you are interested in playing Washington tonight, keep your eye on for Ovechkin news. He would obviously slot back into the top line, top power play, second power play, third power play, fourth power play. Just be aware of that. They are, fairly cheap. I guess like a Tom Wilson. I know KJ's in the chat. A Tom Wilson one-off would honestly be okay. Like, he's actually been pretty good. He hasn't done anything really stupid lately. And that, there's like a calendar on my desk upstairs that says 19 days since the last Tom Wilson incident. The career high for Tom Wilson is 21. So like he's about to do something stupid, but like I don't mind it here. The Blues don't take a bunch of penalties, so I think it's the least in the NHL. So like I don't really stack the caps here for the power play. I don't stack the caps anyway, but they have a 3 total. You probably could take a one-off here and there. The Blues side for me is a bit more interesting. I was kind of annoyed that Jordan Kyrou got moved off to the top line because I'm a big Kyrou guy, so are you. But Jake Neighbors is up there. The issue that I have, right, like I was telling you before the show, Thomas and Buchnevich are very good playmakers. They're, good goal scorers, but Kyrou was the goal scorer there, and he started to see positive regression on his shooting percentage, and he was about to break out. And then the coach is like, hey, you go play with Braden Shen. But like Jake Neighbors is kind of a pain in the ass. You know what I mean? Like he'll get to those greasy areas. He'll get to the goal mouth. So like I don't mind St. Louis one here with Neighbors. It's still a fully correlated line. Jake Neighbors makes the line cheaper at 14.7. I don't like if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm not a Caps fan at all. I don't think they're good on either end of the ice. So my favorite line in this game is St. Louis 1. I think one-offing Jordan Kyrou is perfectly fine.
I don't have a ton of interest in Washington here, whether Ovechkin is in or not. Ovechkin, Strome, Pacioretty is just such a weird line because one of Ovechkin or Pacioretty are gonna would have to play on the right side, which is something that they don't normally do. Neither Ovechkin nor Pacioretty are really good playmakers, so like they're both just looking at Dylan Strome, waiting for the puck to get to them. Like, I don't have a ton of interest in Washington. I never really do. Wait to see if Ovechkin's in. Maybe you can get a low-owned Ovechkin, but like you said, it's not a great power play spot. St. Louis around 3 minor penalties per game. That is towards the bottom of the league. So not a lot of interest in Washington here. It is the St. Louis side that I have interest in. It is the top line that I have interest in. Like Jake Neighbors can't replace Jordan Kyrou. And not only is Jordan Kyrou a good goal scorer, his regression had kicked in. I think it was 7 goals in 13 games since the new coach took over a point per game in that stretch. Jake Neighbors can't really do that. But Jake Neighbors is also only 3,600 on DraftKings. That St. Louis top line is only 14,700 coming in at 3% ownership. I wrote up Jake Neighbors in the picks article. What I made sure to highlight is his impact on the power play. Like the St. Louis power play, the top unit without Jake Neighbors there was scoring 3 goals per 60 minutes, which is absolutely pathetic. With him there, they're up to 8.6. And if you look at St. Louis this year, the on-ice goal rates on the power play, like Jake Neighbors is in a distant first place. And you talk about him creating havoc down low and in front of the net. I think that's kind of what they were missing from that power play was a player like that. And One thing that I highlighted in an article at a different publication was when he's on the ice on the power play, they tend to get shots closer to the net, not just neighbors, but like Kyrou does and Buchnevich does and Thomas does. And anytime you can get closer to the net, it's a good thing. I like the St. Louis top line here. I'm not worried about Washington in any real sense. At 14,700, they're coming with a little bit of negative leverage because they are perfectly correlated on the power play. But at 14,700, like, you don't need them to each put up like 30 DK points or something like that, right? Like 2 goals and, somebody hits the shot bonus and you can probably get there in a single entry. So I really do like St. Louis one here. I hate leaving Jordan Kyrou off a St. Louis stack, but at the same time, I don't think I'd want a power play stack them because the Washington penalty kill has generally been good. So I think if anything in this game, like a Jordan Kyrou one-off, I think certainly makes a lot of sense. If I were to stack any line in this game, it would be St. Louis one.
Yeah. And Chris Drury, I know you're a big fan of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. Hear me out here. Barclay Goodrow, Ryan Lindgren, Pavel Buchnevich. Bring them home. If the Blues do that, their GM should get fired on the spot. A man can dream, though. Chicago Blackhawks. A man can dream. Now we have a nightmare. Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.4 total. Heading into Buffalo, the Sabres have a 3.6. This game was supposed to play yesterday. Weather concerns there pushed it to today. Jeff Skinner out. Dylan Cousins out. Matthias Samuelsson game time decision, or is he out?
I think he's out too.
Yeah. Why is JJ Peterka on the 4th line? I don't know. Don Granato just doing some stuff. Top line, Thompson, Tuck, Benson, fully correlated now. They also kicked Jack Quinn off the top power play unit for no reason. I don't know. Second line, Casey Middlestat, Jack Quinn, Zegmas Gergensons. We call him Gurgle Shits. Thank you, Whiskers, for that. It's like imprinted in my brain. Why is he there? Like, there were so many other options. Like, you could put Olsen there. Like, I don't know. It kind of feels like the Leafs putting Pontus Holmberg up on the top line there. Like, I just don't get it. I like Buffalo one in a nutshell. They're coming in with negative leverage, 11.5%. Projected ownership. The thing is, they're going to see the Dickinson, Joey Anderson line, and that line has been like way better than league average, which is about the only positive thing you could say about the Blackhawks. So, like, I don't really love, like, okay, the price is good, 16,500. I just don't love it in this matchup at negative leverage. I'd rather go play the Blues. I'd rather go play Ottawa. If I'm going to, eat negative leverage, I'd much rather play Ottawa one here than Buffalo one. I think Buffalo one's fine in your MME portfolio, fully correlated on the power play, et cetera, et cetera. Don't love the 5-on-5 matchup. You can go to that second line. Like, I think a Middlestat Quinn 2-man is perfectly acceptable here. I know Buffalo's bottom 6, they kind of both play 13, 14 minutes. I guess a Peterka one-off could be fine, but, like, that's kind of reaching. On the Chicago side, pass.
Yeah, it feels bad because, like, this isn't a bad matchup in a nutshell for Chicago. And one thing you can say is the Chicago top line is probably going to get a lot of minutes. Like, they're probably going to get 20 plus. And anytime a line gets that much ice time, like, you do have to consider them. It's that San Jose conundrum, right? It's like nobody wants to play Michael Granlund, but if they're going to skate Michael Granlund 22 minutes a night, you have to consider him for DFS. And it's kind of the same thing for Chicago. I will say the Chicago top line, Kurashev and Radish, they're up to 65 minutes without Bedard. Again, still not a big sample. But, we're getting up at about 5-6 games worth of ice time. 69 shot attempts and 2.8 expected goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. Those are above average. That's not bad. And Buffalo was not a team to worry about defensively in any regard. I am not playing Chicago. Like, I can tell you that much. But at 10,600, like, if you want to leave off Pitlick, I think Pitlick is still with him on the power play, so you can leave him on. The power play doesn't matter. But at 10,600, it's like, it's one of those lines where you can two-man them with Edmonton, with Tampa Bay, with Colorado, right? I don't know if that's the approach I would take in a single entry. I do think certainly in a 20 max or 150 max, you have to consider them. Like Buffalo is just not a good defensive team. Like there's not a lot to worry about on that side. I agree with you in the assessment of Buffalo. Like I would rather play an over-owned Ottawa here tonight than I would an over-owned Buffalo Sabres team. Like Benson and Tage Thompson just do not have good numbers together. I did write up Thompson for the picks article because he has been shooting the puck a lot more. The big note is that his individual expected goals, which had cratered for the first 6 weeks of the season compared to what he's done in recent seasons, back up to 1.1 over his last 10 games. That's a pretty big improvement for him. And that's why I kind of like, I think even a Tage Thompson one-off would make sense here tonight. Like, I don't mind the Buffalo top line. I just think, like, in their price range, there are other lines, like we just talked about Minnesota one, that I think I would rather play at much lower ownership. I think I would rather play Ottawa at about the same ownership. So, like, no issue playing with Buffalo one. I think Zach Benson's fine. But literally, like, there's like 3 or 4 other players on, like, even with like Cousins out of the lineup, even with Skinner out of the lineup, there are like 4 other players in this forward group that if they were on the top line instead of Benson, I would be auto slamming Buffalo here tonight. I just don't think even against a pretty bad Chicago team, I just don't think he can play top line minutes at this point. Feels like he should be on the slander list. Like that's a 2-goal game waiting to happen. But I think I just kind of agree with you that if I'm going to play an over-owned line here tonight, I'm going to go play Ottawa instead of Buffalo.
Yeah, I would have been much happier if this game actually was played yesterday, I think. But, it's today. Let's talk about our favorite team to slander, the Toronto Maple Leafs with a 3.4 total. Heading into Calgary, the Pilot Lights have a 3.1 total. They don't deserve the Flames name yet. They're still Pilot Lights. This game. Okay. The Leafs have the highest road total on the slate, 3.4. Markstrom's out. They're going with Vladar. They called up Wolf. They're going with Vladar. He sucks. Like, it makes me so mad.
I just don't get calling up. Vladar was just, Wolf was just named in the All-Star game like a week ago too. It's like you're killing me.
The team's finally starting to play better. Markstrom got hurt. They're playing Vladar because they don't want to lose him on waivers. Like, he wouldn't get claimed. He wouldn't get claimed.
I mean, you don't even have to start him tonight. They could have just started Wolf instead. But it is what it is.
But there's no ownership on the Leafs here tonight, and that makes me incredibly nervous because Vladar is awful. Nylander, Tavares, knees, 2.1% projected ownership. Matthews, Marner, Pontus Holberg still up there, 1.7% projected ownership. I think either of the lines are fine here. It's nice to see that Toronto 1 actually has a higher top 2 sack percentage. I think Matthews and Marner have started playing much better together. Marner still sucks. Marner sucks. Marner's dad, his agent, has probably talked himself out of Toronto, but that's for another day. We have a lot more games to get through. He wants more money than Nylander. Yeah, go. Good luck with that. But, like, I don't know. With Vladar net, I think he can go to either Toronto line here. Interesting side is the Calgary side. Looks like Huberdeau's back. He's going to slide in on that top line with Lindholm and Sharangovich, making that line fully correlated against the Leafs. And their penalty kill, as we talked about in the last show, has been horrific lately. Marty Jones started the game against Edmonton strong, completely lost it, folded like a lawn chair in the third period. Not surprising. But Lindholm, Sharangovich, Huberdeau catches my eye here tonight. I think all 3 lines are in play. I think my least favorite now is going to be the Kadri Zari Pospisil line because Zari's going to lose his power play time, so he's probably going to play 9 minutes. I think the Kadri one-off is completely fine, but Calgary 1 for the power play is where I'm looking at. If you want to go to Coleman, back on Mangiapane because they've been good. Like, Coleman's shooting percentage is like double his his career average or something this year.
I was looking like I think the last 3 weeks it's like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's like 40%.
It's like 18% on the seat or something ridiculous. But like, yeah, Calgary won for me. I think the Leafs top 6 are in a really sneaky spot here.
It's tough playing the Matthews Marner Holmberg line. One, like Pontus Holmberg just shouldn't be there. The reason he's there is like, I don't know if anybody saw the Toronto coach's availability a couple nights ago. He said he doesn't know who he can trust on the team. So like it's at this point, like they're just basically throwing anything against the wall to see what can stick. The numbers with Holmberg in a very small sample haven't really been that good offensively. Holmberg did play a lot in that last game. That loss to Edmonton. He played over 18 minutes, which like Nyes didn't do that. Like maybe Bertuzzi did that for a few games, but like it was weird to see him play that much. Marner has been shooting a lot, 33 shots in his last 10 games. Like the problem is facing that backline line, right? And this is where I'm kind of getting torn. It's like going up against the backline line is a bad matchup. The backline line is easily above average defensively. Their actual goals against only at 1.8. Problem is it's Vladar and net. Like, honestly, like the Matthews line, even if they only generate like 8 shots here, they could score 4 goals on Vladar with the way like he's playing, or he's generally played this season. Like, it's just not a goaltending matchup that I'm worried about. I think it's a significant downgrade in net going from Markstrom to Vladar. So I don't really have a problem playing Toronto 1 here tonight just for that reason. And like you talked about the ownership, there is almost no ownership, 1.7% on the top line. Even the second line is only at 2.1%. If people want to avoid the backlit matchup, which I think is a reasonable thing to do, like going to Toronto 2 is fine. I wonder about John Tavares kind of rebounding. The coach has been on him a little bit over his last couple games. William Nylander has no goals in his last 5 games, but he has 21 shots in that span. So like he's still staying pretty involved offensively. He's just not finding the back of the net. And I can't imagine a better slump buster than facing Dan Vladar. So like I think I have a little bit more interest in Toronto 2, just to avoid the backlit matchup. Like once you get up against the Kadri line, like they're fine, but they can be high event. The Huberdeau line's not good defensively. So I think it's Toronto 2 for me, but I do think Toronto's coming in a little bit underappreciated considering the goaltender that they're facing. It's Calgary 1 I like best in this game. I wrote them up in the picks article. I actually had them in the picks article on Tuesday as well, but Jonathan Huberdeau was a late scratch. He's going to be in tonight because it was just an illness. Toronto's power play or penalty kill, has been very, very bad. That's what I highlight in the article. 4th most shots and 7th most goals against per minute on the penalty kill over the last 6 weeks. This Calgary top line perfectly correlated on the power play. They're not very expensive. I think they are one of the mid-price lines that I would target here tonight. So Calgary 1, Toronto 2 for me.
Unmuted. No argument from me. I do that once a show now. Since Clayton said something to me about me clicking my mouse to switch to games, I mute in between games, clearly blaming Clayton for this fiasco. I'm just kidding. Seriously. Seattle Kraken with a 2.7 total heading into Edmonton. The Oilers have a 3.8. Evander Kane, game time decision. It doesn't really affect my process too much. Okay. Edmonton won 23,900, 5.8% projected. Lines right around the same price as Tampa won, right around the same ownership. Like Seattle, Vinny Dunn could be out, which would be a big loss. I think Tampa's in a better spot, and I would prefer to play Tampa 1 to Edmonton 1 here, but it is McDavid. Their matchup proof. That line is just peak nitrous. I think they're perfectly fine. If you like threw me into a corner and put a gun to my head, you have one lineup, you have one line. I'd take Tampa 1 over Edmonton 1. I think Edmonton 1 is easily in my top 3. There's nothing you can say about them. They have slate breaking ability every slate, and you're getting them at very high positive leverage. It's just a matter of picking between Edmonton, Tampa, Boston, Colorado, Vancouver, you know what I mean? I think my favorite is Tampa and Vancouver, which we'll get to. Can you go to Edmonton too? Yeah, I think it's fine. Just, if you are full stacking and you have Kane in there, just be aware. Don't mind the Draisaitl Fogle 2-man. On the flip side, I think you got to consider Seattle, and they're not coming in with a ton of ownership. Like, I know, I love just picking on Edmonton. They have been a bit better defensively. They're not the train wreck that they were earlier in the season. But the reason I never like Seattle is because they're always chalk. Not the case here. Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, and Gord line, 12,300, a little bit under 2%. McCann, Eberle, Tatar, under 1.5%. You know what I mean? So, if for me, it would be Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, and Gord. I think they're fine as a filler line in your MME portfolio, but Edmonton won for me.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot to say about Edmonton, the top line. I was looking at their numbers since Christmas. Goal scoring is down a little bit, 3.7 expected goals. But it's just driven by shooting percentage. Like, they're still creating 3.7 actual goals. They're still creating 4.3 expected goals per 60 minutes since Christmas. Like, they are still just kind of creating offense at will. The problem is this is a pretty bad power play spot, right? Seattle, I think, is still the least penalized team in the NHL. Yeah, 2.7 times shorthanded per game, or minor penalties taken, per game over the last 2 months, 8 weeks. That's the lowest in the NHL. And the penalty kill is great besides that. That's kind of the issue. It's one thing to not take a lot of penalties and allow a lot of goals, which is something Toronto's been doing that we just talked about. It's another thing to not take penalties and have a great penalty kill. That really kind of hinders Edmonton here. I was looking, this is the third time these two teams have played. In the first game, Zach Hyman had a hat trick. In the second game, Evander Kane had a hat trick. That's kind of the problem that Edmonton presents, is they don't need a great power play spot and 35 shots to get a high DFS night. I just don't know if I would go about full stacking. Anything can happen on any given night, but I kind of agree with you that I think I would rather go to Tampa Bay. I would rather go to Boston. I might even rather go to Colorado, despite Boston having higher ownership percentages, just because I don't think this is a good enough power play matchup to justify it over Tampa or over Boston or something like that in a single entry. So no problem playing Edmonton. We'll never say don't play Connor McDavid. It's just ludicrous. It's just when you look at the other high-priced lines on the slate, I think that there are reasons to not play Edmonton here tonight. On the Seattle side, it would be that Gord, Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen line. They've been on a pretty good tear since Christmas. 3.5 expected goals per 60 minutes, 79 shot attempts per 60 minutes. They didn't get a lot of ice time in their last game, which I found weird considering that they're missing Matty Beniers. But, Seattle's going to Seattle. That would be the line that I would go to on the Seattle side. I think this is another game where I'd have more interest in if Evander Kane plays, a one-off Evander Kane or a one-off Zach Hyman or a one-off Oliver Bjorkstrand or a one-off Jared McCann, those types of things rather than full stacking a line.
Yep, that makes sense to me. Just wanted to again say thank you, all the support. Put the link in the chat if you're interested in signing up. Cliffy's article, always free to read, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Stokastic.com/NHL. You'll see it. I will be starting to do MMA content weekly. Today it's going to be up on my Twitter. It'll probably be up 6, 7 o'clock tonight. It will be up on the Stokastic YouTube going forward. I will be doing a quick picks article. There will be a promo code for the MMA Sims package for tomorrow. Just be on the lookout for that if you are interested in getting the MMA Sims, which we have now. Very excited about that. I will be using them. You should too if you are playing MMA. But again, thank you for the support, for the super chats, the people signing up through the link. It means a lot. Nashville Predators with a 2.7 total heading into LA. The Kings have a 3.3. Be honest, I don't have a ton of interest in this game in 1 to 3. I think, the Nashville top line, I think, is fine in MME. You're coming in at 1.6% projected. 18,400 it's a bit pricey when you can get, the Blues, you can get even Buffalo, you can get Ottawa for a bit cheaper and better matchups. They are fully correlated for whatever that's worth. I think my favorite line in this game is the Kings second line, more Fiala Deneau. They're going to avoid that Ryan O'Reilly matchup. Not that they've been super great defensively. Their numbers have been sliding defensively. But once you get past them, the Nashville depth isn't really great defensively. Get Fiala on that top power play unit. They kind of split time. You got Deneau and Moore on that second unit. So they all get power play time. They are a little bit negatively leveraged at 5% projected ownership, 4.1% top two stack, but that's probably the line I like the most in this game.
Time for a little bit of a mini rant. You hear a lot coaches want to send guys to the AHL to develop, right? They want to develop their defense. They want to develop better offensive instincts, whatever. Sammy Fagemo has spent 4 years in the AHL, okay? He has 43 goals over his last 90 AHL games, averaging 3 shots per game. They call him up before Tuesday's game. They don't play him. Doesn't look like he's going to play tonight. And Los Angeles is 28th in the league in 5-on-5 scoring over the last 6 weeks. You have a guy who played to a 40 goal per 82 game pace in the minor leagues over the last 2 years, who's taken 4 years to develop, as coaches and managers want players to do. And you don't put him in the lineup when you're a bottom 5 scoring team in the league. Like, why even call him up then? What's the point? Like, that's one thing I do not get. If you're not going to play a guy who can score goals, or we think can score goals, at a time when you desperately need goal scoring, why even call him up? Just call up a different player. Like, that's what I don't get. It's really, really frustrating. And then you see Jordan Spence is coming out. Jordan Spence is coming out of the lineup coming into the lineup, for Brant Clark. So, you talk about one effing cloud and you lose internet connectivity. It feels like Los Angeles is saying one effing prospect, and that's all we're allowed on the roster. At a time when they've lost 8 of their last 9 or something like that, and they can't, and they're bottom 5 in scoring over the last 6 weeks. It's just frustrating, man. The thing is like they're still a pretty good defensive team. I know they let in 5 goals against Dallas the other night, but that was back-to-back on the road. Like, I'm not all that concerned about it. So I don't have a lot of interest in Nashville. 20 max, 150 max, I think you'd certainly want to consider Nashville 1. I think in a single entry, other lines in that price, like I'd rather just go play Minnesota 1 or something like that. You know what I mean? On the Los Angeles side, I still have interest in Los Angeles too. Like, for as much trouble as the entire team is having, like that line is still playing well. Over the last 3 weeks, 3.1 expected goals, 2.9 actual goals per 60 minutes. They're all skating between 18 and 19 minutes over the last handful of games. So I don't mind Los Angeles too here because, $16K, like they're not that expensive, right? Like you can still put in like a $19,000 or $20,000 line alongside of them. You can still play them like with a Toronto or something like that if you want. So I do have a little bit of interest in Los Angeles too here. Probably it for the game. This coaching staff is really starting to piss me off.
It's a quick party here because Sammy F, we'll call him. That's right up his alley with like the Riley Barbers of the world. Like if they're gonna crush the AHL and never get the shot in the NHL. That's a quick party special right there. Add him to the list. I like this game. Arizona Coyotes with a 2.7 total. Heading into Vancouver, the Canucks have a 3.7. Nick Schmaltz game time decision. Maybe they skated while we've been talking and I missed it, but we don't get news on the Coyotes anyway. Get more news on the Coyotes than we do on the lines for the Wings when the games they play, but whatever. Vancouver won 23,400. Pretty expensive. I think the third most expensive line on the night. Elias Patterson, JT Miller, Brock Besser. Coming in at 1.2% projected ownership. Now, you have Tampa around 6%. You have Edmonton 6%, Colorado 6%, Boston 12%. Like it's not a precipitous drop off to 6% to 1.2% on a 11 game slate. That being said, I really do like Vancouver 1 here. Arizona takes a ton of penalties. Their penalty kill isn't great, so Vancouver 1 probably in my top 3 of the expensive lines. I like them more than Colorado. I like the spot better than Edmonton. Now, will I rank them above Edmonton? Probably not, because McDavid, will whip his wang out and have 4 goals if I do that. Vancouver 1 for me. On the Arizona side, we have to see what the lines are if Schmaltz is out. I'm always interested in the line that has
I'm just seeing right now, Daily Face. There's a reporter from Daily Face-Off at the Vancouver rink, and he's saying Nick Schmaltz not on the ice.
That could be problematic for the lines. So the thing is, right, since Zadorov, however you pronounce it, came back, their penalty kill has been better. They're cheap. That's the thing. Like, if it's Bukestad, Genther, Cooley at 11.5, I don't mind them. If it's Krause, Michelli, someone, I feel like they're going to go back to Bukestad, Krause, Michelli with Schmaltz out. I don't mind that line. I don't mind Michelli, Krause, 2-man as it is. So if you're interested in the Coyotes, and I have a little bit of interest, and I think they're more of an MME play, I would be near your computer or phone when this game locks, and it's unfortunately a late game. But the saving grace is Schmaltz is probably more expensive than anyone else you're going to swap to. So if you're playing Arizona, just be aware.
Yeah, it would be the Genther, Bukestad, Cooley line I have interest in from the Arizona side. Genther's look good. We got face facts there. I think Bukestad has good play driving numbers so far this season. They're really honest, there isn't a sample to work with on that line, but there are good individual pieces there that would lead me to believe that they can be successful this season. There are two, Genther and Cooley are, if Schmaltz is out, are probably going to both be on the top power play. So you get 2 out of 3 guys on the top power play. So if you want a 2-man Cooley and Genther, I think that's fine. I would probably 2-man Genther and Bukestad, but I do think I have a little bit of interest there. I think I might look for my cheap stacks elsewhere. It's Vancouver 1. I wrote up Elias Pettersson in the picks article. What I mentioned in that picks article is obviously Vancouver 1, they're just tearing everybody apart. A lot of it is shooting percentage, but they're also creating a lot, right? They're over, I think it's over 35 shots per 60 minutes, which is a really, really high number, where even if they were only shooting 11 or 12% as a line, they would still be at 4 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, which is an elite number. So that's why I still have faith in Vancouver. The Arizona penalty kill, not that good. Second most shot attempts against per 60 minutes on the PK over the last 6 weeks. So I really do like Vancouver 1. I'm there with you. I think that Bukestad line, a 2-man off of that, is fine from Arizona. But yeah, this is a Vancouver game, and a Vancouver game in a big way.
Yeah. Highest total on the night besides Edmonton as well. So let's get to the late night hammer. My Rangers on the West Coast. New York Rangers with a 2.9 total heading into Vegas. The Golden Knights have a 2.7 total. Not much ownership in this game. The highest projected lines are on the Vegas side here. Stevenson, Stone, Dorofeyev, 4.8% projected. They're 13,000. Both the Vegas lines are 13,000. So it makes sense. They're filler lines. Marchessault, Barbashev, Waugh, Roy, Waugh. I've heard the coach say both. So they're coming in at 5.4% projected. I think either are okay. I don't love either. Stevenson's just been a massive boat anchor all season. And then Barbashev hasn't been great either. So I don't love full stacking either. I think you can take 2 men from each of these lines. Interesting, there's no ownership on the Rangers here. The Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line above 20,000. And I think that's why you're seeing 1.1% projected ownership on them. I think the way to go about this is Vegas penalty kill, not great. I think you can power play stack here. I think even going to Rangers top line here with Kakko, their numbers on both ends of the ice with Kakko there instead of anyone else are much better on both ends. So it's just a question of finishing. I think, 15,600, that's a mid-range line I can get behind. If you're making a mid-range line build, I like Kakko. You get Zibanejad and Kreider on the power play. I think Rangers 2 is fine. It's just pricey for the road total.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I don't have any issue playing the Rangers second line. They're still creating a lot. They're still scoring. They still get the top power play minutes. Vegas' penalty kill has been on a big slide over the last 6 weeks. And, no William Karlsson, no Jack Eichel. Those two guys play the most minutes on Vegas' penalty kill of any of their forwards. So it takes two pretty big pieces out of the lineup for a penalty kill that's just not been playing well anyway. So no problem playing Rangers 2 here. I think I agree with you on the Rangers top line. Not a lot of ownership, 1.7% ownership, 1.7% top 2 stack percentage. Kakko helps them drive the play a lot better. Don't have a high shooting percentage. That's generally been a problem. Hopefully it's something that they can kind of turn around in the second half of the season. But you get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. You're going to go up against that Stevenson and Stone line, which, like, they've just been atrocious defensively. Like, there's really no other way to go around it. Dorofeyev might make them a little bit better defensively, but Stone and Stevenson have been an absolute train wreck in their own zone. So pretty good 5-on-5 matchup for the Kreider line. It's a pretty good power play matchup for the Kreider line. I don't think I have a ton of interest other than like a one-off Jonathan Marchessault, maybe a cheap Dorofeyev or something like that from Vegas. I think that's fine, but it is the Rangers top line I'm the most interested in this game.
Yeah, and that's rare for both of us because we've been on the New York Rangers 2 train. I guess, you replace Wheeler with anybody half decent. It makes the Rangers line much better. But yeah, that is the 11 gamer. Let's talk. Am I muted? No, I'm not. Now I'm like second guessing myself. Clayton. Let's talk a little bit about defensemen here. I don't love anyone at the top of the board, right? I think they're all fine plays. Makar, Dahlin, or Hughes, Bouchard, Yossi, Pietrangelo. I'll even throw Anderson and Matheson into that mix. I think the 3, and I guess it's 4 even, that I like are Weegar, Hedman, Riley, and McAvoy. If I'm spending up, you always say, like, Riley's been blocking a bunch more shots this season. Hedman's in a great power play spot. Weegar, I think it should be Weegar. It could be Rasmus Anderson. You never know with the Flames coach running that top power play. Matheson is fine. Who else you liking?
Yeah, Dahlin is the guy that I had at the top of my list. Weegar did run the power play in that last game. Just a heads up for that. So you're right there. I do have Mike Matheson. That should be a high-paced matchup against Ottawa. And like you talk about not worrying about Ottawa defensively, I think that plays pretty well for Mike Matheson. Victor Hedman certainly in that good power play spot. I wrote up Adam Fox in the picks article. Like, he's not a guy that puts up a lot of peripherals, but he's not going to get any ownership here tonight. He's not that expensive. I think it's 5,300 on DK. And as we just talked about, I think it's an underrated power play spot for the Rangers. So I do like Fox. Also like Thomas Chabot and Thomas Harley in that mid-price range as well. And Brock Faber certainly always in play. Charlie McAvoy, kind of a little bit of I don't know if it's going to be a sneaky play, but he's projecting very well over on Stokastic, and could be a lot of special teams time, which could mean shots and blocks for McAvoy. Don't mind him either. With Vince Dunn out, like Jamie Alexiak again for Seattle, probably gonna have to block a lot of shots against Edmonton. I wrote up Brian McDonough in the picks article. He's been getting more minutes over the last few weeks. He's up over 23 minutes a game against Los Angeles. That could mean a lot of blocks on DraftKings. So I do like McDonough. Esa Lindell again for Dallas. Henry Jokiharju for Buffalo. With Samuelson out, he might be like around 19, 20 minutes. Don't mind him for cheap. And Alex Vlasic on the other side of that game. He's been playing a lot of minutes, even with Seth Jones back. For like super punts, Will Borgen from Seattle again. Nick Jensen, Stone Mint punt, 2,500 if you need one. And Brandon Carlo, I do believe he's going to be back for Boston here tonight. He's 2,900 on DK. Might have to block a lot of shots as well.
Yep. we missed. He was chalky. Riker Evans, he's now 3,300, but he's still fine if Vinny Dunn's out. Let's talk a little bit about goalies, and holy moly. Pekka, Luukkonen, 8,500 tonight. No. I guess if the spend up options here would be Swayman or Demko. You're going to be mad at me, but I like Igor here tonight. Bring it. If, I like Igor. Charlie Lindgren, 7,800. Is it Jordan Bennington night? Maybe. It just gets rough. Like if you go under 7,500, like Logan Thompson against the Rangers, Georgiev against Boston, I think is okay. Philip Gustafsson against Tampa might be okay. It's just a brutal power play spot or penalty kill spot. UC Saros, LA hasn't been able to score recently. I think he's okay. Joey Decord, if you want to ride the Lightning. Connor Ingram, 7K. It's all right, but I don't know. Honestly, Igor and Charlie Lindgren are my two favorite.
UC Saros was literally the first name I put in my picks article this morning, and I don't feel confident about goalies. I just go with what my projections tell me, and it's kind of like go with God, my son. But 7,300 against a team with the most shots per 60 minutes over the last 6 weeks. That is also a bottom 5 scoring team at 5-on-5 in that same span at 7,300. If Saros burns me, he burns me, but he was number 1 with a bullet in my article. So I really do like him. Certainly Jake Ottinger as well for Dallas. Philly can't score in the power play. If you're going to give Ottinger a bunch of 5-on-5 shots, I like his chances of having a decent DFS night. A bit of a question of what I want to do in that Chicago game. I would have a little bit of interest in starting Mrazek. Buffalo really doesn't worry me. Buffalo can score 6 or 7 goals here tonight. Let's be very clear about that. But it's not a team that I'm terrified of offensively like I was of them, 12 months ago, like this time last year. So if you need a super cheap goalie, I think Mrazek is perfectly fine. I do like Igor as well. Have him 4th on my list. I want to say Skinner would probably be my expensive goalie, but I worry you're kind of waiting. You kind of need a shutout, right? I'm worried that Seattle can't put up 25 shots here. So I think as expensive as I want to get would probably be Ottinger. But yeah, Saros, Mrazek, Ottinger, Igor would be my goalies.
We like Igor and Ottinger tonight. So we're prepared to be nuked tomorrow on air. It's just what it is. You guys hate those two goalies and we like them. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Actually, it's somebody that I don't like. It's a spicy pick, but I had him in the picks article, kind of taking a little bit of a stand with him. I'm going with Jake Neighbors.
I had him written down too.
Oh, nice.
That was the guy. Me and you have been on the same page for better or worse. Let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got. Capo. Come on, homers. Let's go.
Okay.
Scored a goal. He scores.
Yeah,
Sometimes. We will be back tomorrow. It's supposed to snow here, so God knows my internet's going to be okay. But it is a 4-gamer. We will be back, though, tomorrow. Also on Saturday. Make sure to smash that like button on the way out. Click that affiliate link if you're interested in signing up. Any sport, any membership. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Clayton, for ruining my life. I'm just kidding.
See you tomorrow. Good luck tonight, everyone.